firstly, I haven't seen you since then. How have the boys recovered? What were your thoughts of the match? Give us your thoughts of the no penalty late in the match. And, gee, you must have been pleased with the second half after going down, after being down 2-0. You fought your way back, and I thought you were really unlucky not to get something out of the game.
I thought the first half. Look, the first half an hour, Melbourne City, didn't get a shot on goal, so I thought we were actually looking fairly comfortable in the game. I wasn't too worried, and then they scored the goal, and then they had a 10-minute spell there where we really lost our shape and our structure and a little bit of our discipline as well, our tactical discipline, and they had 3 or 4 chances in that period, and that was a bit disappointing to see. But second half we came out and, with a lot of belief and actually started to control the game a little bit and had some good passages in attack and good passages of controlled possession. So, a lot of good elements in the second half. They were still dangerous on the counter-attack and they still had 3 or 4 good chances in the second half as well, and that's why they're probably the form team of March. But look, I was pleased how we stuck at it and posed a little bit of a threat towards the end of the game. For me, it was a clear penalty. The referee said to me that he saw and heard Metcalf get a toe on the ball. For me, it was irrelevant. It was incidental and accidental. Metcalf slipped, but for me, he took Alo out of the game. And for me, for that reason, it's a clear pen. I was just watching Spain and Greece just then, and Greece got a penalty where the defender cleared the ball and he's totally cleared the ball, 100% cleared the ball, and then a second later he raised his foot and accidentally glanced the Greek player. So regardless of whether he got the ball or not, he made contact with the opposition player and took him out. So, a little bit different situation, but exactly the same in principle. For me, it was a penalty, and at that moment there still would have been 15 minutes to go. So could have been a game changer. So we're a little bit unlucky with that call. I think it could have been a momentum changer and turned things our way. And Melbourne City might have had some thoughts about what happened to them the last time we played them when they were up 2-0. So all those things could have happened. There could haves and should haves and would haves and all that kind of stuff. But look, the second half was a little bit better. But you can't take anything away from City either. They were the better team on the night, and they deserved to win.
I heard a few comments on the night just about has the heavy pitch, has that had any toll, with the amount of rain we've had here on the Central Coast? Were some of the boys a little leg weary? Could you elaborate on that?
No, we weren't leg weary. We just couldn't train properly last week. So, when the rain started, we'd had 1 or 2 sessions earlier in the week because we had an 8-day turnaround. So the first couple of sessions we got in, but ultimately they're just recovery sessions. And then by the third session in the week, we went out on those new pitches out at Tuggerah, and within 15 minutes we had to cancel the session because the water had pooled on the pitch. Unfortunately, they didn't let us train on a dry pitch over there, which is disappointing. That we had a pitch right next door that we weren't allowed to train on. So, to have a professional sporting team on the coast and not have a pitch that's right there available to us within hand's reach, 20 metres away, was a bit disconcerting, to be honest. And then that happened again the next day as well. So we really didn't get a full session in at all in the last 5 days. We had to bring our flights forward just to get to Melbourne early to actually get a session in game day -1. So very, very grateful to Paul Trimboli from Melbourne Victory who organised Gosh's paddock for us, and we got a session in game day -1. But ultimately, it's the last session before a game, so you can't do too much anyway. So it sounds like an excuse, and I don't want it to be one, but it does make it harder to play. And certainly when you're playing against a team like Melbourne City, it was very hard to prepare, in 11v11 sort of way that we do sometimes in game day -2 and 3. So it just presented a bigger challenge.
Yeah, well, that is staggering. Now, Cam, that's one for you, mate. So you're not allowed to train on a perfectly good pitch. Who are you dealing with in that situation?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Look, those fields at Tuggerah have been hard to access for us over a period of time, but we were allowed on there. I know the Mariners had a couple of the fields booked out for a knockout tournament. So we were allowed on those two, but those two pitches within 10 minutes of the thunderstorm were underwater. So, for safety reasons, I just had to cancel the session. So we really couldn't do much other than the warm-up and a passing practice, and then we cancelled it. So, but the field next door, which had rugby posts on it, was bone dry. Regardless of the rain, it was in immaculate condition. But yeah, we were told there was a touch tournament on there next week and we weren't allowed on there. So, as a head coach of the Mariners and a team that represents our community and been doing it so well this year, I just thought it was hard to take. And for the players to see a pitch next door and know that they're not allowed on it was also, it's just upsetting, to be honest.
It really speaks to the whole wider issue across football in this country, doesn't it? You have a touch tournament next week and you have a football match, a professional A-League match coming up and you're not even allowed to train on a perfectly fine pitch.
Yeah, look, I think that's the issue for football across the country. We have to share facilities in Australia and that's part of our sporting landscape, and I think we all have to accept that. I love all the other codes that we have in this country and the diversity of sport that we have. I actually love it, and you guys know the conversation we just had prior to the interview about the Panthers and the NRL. I love all the other sports and particularly the NRL, but football really does have to put a stake in the ground in terms of, our connections to local government, state government, federal government. If we're to get the full experience and the full, range of access that we should have. We're the biggest sport in the country in terms of participation. But at the professional level and semi-professional level, we're held back due to lack of access to a lot of facilities. And being a part of women's football for such a long time, that was a massive issue. But to feel it at the professional men's level, it does touch on the soul a little bit that we just don't have anywhere near enough of a say within the right levels of government to be able to expose our sport at the right ways and give every opportunity we have for our athletes and our fans to enjoy the game. But we played Melbourne Victory this week. They played Wellington the other day. I actually thought they were quite good. I don't think the scoreline was a reflection of the match at all. I thought Victory were probably the more dominant team, especially throughout the first half. Oliver Sale did 2 unbelievable saves to keep Wellington in front and in the game. Melbourne Victory on the bottom of the ladder and had a tough game the other night, but we can't be complacent, underestimate them at all. They've got enough firepower in Robbie Cruz and Cansoba and Falami and other players who can come on, who can cause problems. And, McManaman for them has been a real find. Definitely a team we're not going to be taking lightly tomorrow night.
Staj, what's been the focus for this week? You mentioned against Melbourne City last weekend, the first half was disappointing and the second half was much more improved. Have you been trying to unpack and maybe find out what went wrong in the first half, or are you more trying to build the momentum off the much better second half? Yeah,
look, as I said, the first half an hour, they only really had, I don't know if you remember, but just one header that Naboo climbed over clears, and that was it. So other than that, they weren't actually a threat despite having the ball. And we played lots of games like that this year where other teams have had possession of the ball. I think back to MacArthur in round 2 and Sydney round 4 or 5, where it was similar matches, and I just didn't feel worried up until the goal. But the fact that we conceded the goal, the team seemed disrupted for 10 minutes or so, and for that you also got to give a bit of credit to the opposition. So, there's a little bit of mentality there that we needed to address, but also some things on just being a little bit more courageous and having a little bit more conviction and belief in a tough moment, and backing ourselves with our shape and with our structures. And once we returned to that after half time, I thought we were pretty decent. I thought you could just see the way the boys were knocking the ball around, and the subs who came on had a good impact in the game as well, which is an important part of our team. I thought Yonata came on and controlled the game a little bit better, and Bowman came on and gave us some forward runs. Allo, whilst probably not being as dangerous as he has been, still had 2 or 3 unbelievable moments where he could have set up or scored goals. So, the boys who came on, Dan Hall came on and, on his debut and had 1 or 2 average touches to start with, but after that I thought he was very good. So, there was still a lot of positives to take away from the game. and ultimately we played a team who's maybe not on the scoreline, but even in the scoreline in some respect have smashed everyone in the last month. And for me, they were the better team, but it wasn't a smashing. And again, if one or two things that went our way, even the Roston Griffiths deflection that went over the crossbar in about the 60th minute, if that goes in, it definitely changes the game back the other way in momentum. So, we did address some things at half-time and post-match, but, Melbourne Victory are a different kettle of fish. They're a team who's been on the bottom for a while, but they've definitely got more quality and more ability than what their position belies. And, we definitely can't underestimate how good they are and how good they can be and how big a threat they can be, especially wanting to prove everyone wrong. And the Mariners, having been in that position for so long, I certainly know how they feel, and they'll want to come out fighting and proving themselves tomorrow night.
When you spoke about Penrith earlier and how young they are, to see Hawley make his debut and, also Max Ballard played the other night too. So it's a real opportunity again to give exposure to these boys before we get to the massive games at the end of the year. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I'm a pretty big Panthers fan, and what they've done there with their academy over a long period of time, they've produced a conveyor belt of kids now who could play in any NRL team and be the best players in the team. So they're not just producing NRL players or identifying NRL players, they're doing both, but they're producing the best. Here at the Mariners, I think we've started that conveyor belt, and that was my intention when I first came in 2 and a bit years ago now, is to start that conveyor belt up again. And we've put in structures in place with our connections with the youth team and giving these kids an opportunity. And none of the kids have played just to give them experience, just to give them a game. They've played because they've earned it through their performances, either in the youth team or in our training sessions. Like Max Ballard's been probably one of the best trainers in our team over the last month. So, I had no hesitation in putting him in probably the hardest game that we're going to play this year. So I'm really happy for him. I'm really proud of what we've done as a club to give these kids the exposure and the opportunities. And I think I said to you before the interview, the Panthers, if they can keep that squad together, will win the competition, or should be in a position to win the competition for the next 4 or 5 years. And hopefully for us on the Mariners, we're putting things in place that'll keep this squad competitive for the next 4 or 5 years. It's a long-term thing. With kids, you're not going to get, the high highs every single week. You're going to get those little ups and downs. But I'm sure with all the exposure that these kids have got over the last, 6 to 12 months, that this club's going to be better for it moving forward.
Speaking of that squad, I haven't seen the announcement. I don't think it's been put out yet. But is Gianni back this week?
If he gets through today's training session, yeah, he'll be back this week. So we just got another training session, about half an hour. So if he gets through that, yeah, he'll be in the squad. Any
other updates to provide with anyone else? Any other concerns? Or
no, the rest of the squad's fit. So touch wood. We're in a good way at the moment physically. So it's still a tight turnaround for us. It's still only 4 days in between matches, and then we got another two more tight turnarounds against Adelaide and Wanderers. So also just trying to manage the team over that period is going to be really important as well.
And I think last home game you had, it was delayed, torrential rain, and that was when you were calling for Central Coast to really rally around the team. Saturday, it's going to be beautiful tomorrow. What's your message to the fans?
Oh, look, again, we've talked about how important it is, and I've talked about it ad nauseum, how important it is for the A-League to have regional teams and the connection of football to a region. And, I think that connection's maybe being lost over the last few years here on the coast, and not because of anything in particular, but rather maybe the team's performance and people become disenfranchised with the team. But, I think that the football community in Central Coast should really be proud of what these boys have achieved to this point, because we've done it off the smell of an oily rag, and I think everyone can see the fight and the hunger. Everyone can see the passion for the shirt, for the team, for each other. And if they're not going to get behind the team now, then they probably never will. So, you know, I think that the boys are representing the Central Coast in the best possible way. I think they need the fans to replicate that in droves. You know, there's always the core supporters who come and support, and, you know, we're always thankful and grateful to them. But, you know, I think the whole football community of Central Coast needs to come out and support this team and show that they do love the team, show that the Coast do deserve to have a team in the A-League. And I guess from the bigger picture is show that more regional clubs should be in the A-League, and we should be able to spread the gospel to all parts of Australia.